2023 Mr. Olympia Classic Physique prejudging just wrapped up, and it was as expected. Everyone who you thought would have been in the top six was in the top six, minus perhaps Michael the Bull, which I was a bit surprised about that. I would have had either Mike Summerfield or even Wesley Vissers in that sixth spot. But the same guys from last year, also the same guys this year. Now, everyone is in condition. Everyone is peeled. Everyone is shredded from the back. Everyone has incredible shape. I mean, this is just not a easy show to judge. I do not envy the judges here in terms of picking out a winner. But Chris did have some flaws last year, mainly the swollen bicep, as he did have a micro tear going into the show. This year, the biceps are perfect. There's no issues in terms of a tear or any flaws in his physique. This might be one of the better Chris in terms of physiques we've ever seen. Now, Terrence definitely brought a good package, but I do have him outside the top three, also with Breon. I think, as of right now, I might actually have Breon beating Terrence because he's, for the most part, matching Terrence in conditioning, but he's just, in terms of size and just what he brings to the stage, is a little better in terms of this show than Terrence, but I could actually see him giving that fourth spot to Terrence. Urs, classic shape, put on a lot of muscle over the offseason, but just not enough in terms of being on the level of Ramon and Chris. Now, it actually did come down to a two-man call-out, which I think Urs did enough to deserve to be in that. I think it should have been a three-man call-out. I prefer three-man call-outs because I think two-man call-outs, it kind of just make things a bit predictable. But if you throw three people in a call-out, then I think that does leave a bit more room for speculation. But nonetheless, we actually got down to a two-man call-out between Ramon Dino and Chris Bumstead. So 1 and 2 from last year are still 1 and 2 this year. Now, last year was very convincing, although Chris had a swollen bicep due to the micro tear. This year, I think Ramon is edging him. I do believe so. Ramon just has it. He just has everything. He has a shape. He has the massive arms. He's matching Chris in conditioning. In fact, he might have better conditioning in some areas. I think when you go to the side shots, Chris is just leagues above Ramon due to just the lower body development. He just has way deeper cuts in the hams, glutes, and quad area. But Ramon's size, his shoulders, his biceps, he's rocking a beard this time around. He didn't shave off the beard, so I guess that's considered classic, right? But these guys are close. They're closer than they were last year. Ramon has definitely brought up his back quite a bit, like quite a freaking bit. In if I were to say there's any weakness on him, it would have been the back and just the legs from the side. I think he is definitely improved, but I don't think he's done enough to beat Chris Bumstead. Not at all. Now, Chris might actually be slightly off in the conditioning department compared to last year, as if you compare his photos from last year to this show, you can see in terms of conditioning-wise, specifically from the back, he did have tighter glutes. But honestly, I don't think that is any knock to say Ramon's going to beat him. Chris has sacrificed a little bit of conditioning to come in a bit heavier, as he does look bigger. I mean, he is the biggest guy on that stage by a lot. If you look at the top six and go through everyone, you can just clearly see that Ramon and Chris, they both stand out, but Chris specifically, he stands out even above Ramon in terms of just size in every department. Even some poses with the arms. Now, Chris definitely is not known for the arms. He's actually struggled his entire career trying to bring those arms up. But I think in terms of his peaks, it does give him an advantage in some poses, as Ramon does have what appears to be a flatter bicep, although his arms are pretty big, right? The peak itself is a bit flat. But overall, this is a very competitive show, and I'm actually very interested to see the finals. I think this is one of the years where we can say we actually do have a legit contender to potentially knock Chris off of that number one spot. They actually did a second call out with the guys that are battling for that third to looks like 7 or 8 spot. In this call out, we have Mike Summerfield, we have Michael DeBole, we have Urs, we have Breon, we have Terrence, and then we have Wesley Vissers. So in this lineup, I do think if you look at Terrence, his conditioning definitely shines through the rest of them for sure. But I definitely would have Breon winning majority of these poses just because of the fact that he's pretty polished and the details everywhere. He's not lacking anything other than perhaps size in the lower body department. when you look at Urs in certain poses, though, he is definitely a statue. He's towering over almost all these guys. I think Wesley's actually the tallest guy here. But in terms of shape and everything, Urs does have it. Lower body down to the calves. He has brought his arms up quite a bit, not on the level of like a Breon, who's known for his arms. But when you couple the shape, when you couple the added size, because he's quite bigger than he was last year, and just the height that he has over some of the other guys as well, I think he's overall winning this, if not battling Breon and even Terrence in some poses. I think if you were to give Terrence a few more inches, he probably would win this quite easily, but he's very, very short. And, I think height in bodybuilding is not the end all be all, but you definitely notice a bigger body, a taller body, a wider body on stage compared to a shorter one that's not as wide. Michael the Bull, I mean, trademark conditioning, but I was never a fan of his physique, to be fair. Nothing's wrong with it, but in terms of being put together like the other guys and posing as well, he's not the best poser. I don't really see him, for example, beating like a Mike Summerfield, maybe Wesley, because him and Wesley's had a little back and forth with he would win one and then Wesley would win one and then Mike would win one and then Wesley would win another one. So they kind of back and forth on placings. Almost every single show they compete each other in. So, but most likely going to be Michael and Wesley on the outside of that last call out there. Now, Wesley's issues are always, I guess, lower body conditioning from the rear. He has all the muscle in the world, but the hamstrings and the glutes, they're just not on the level of the other competitors. They're just not. Although, I mean, he's worked quite a bit on his legs, and you can definitely appreciate what he's done thus far. His upper body has come up way more than his legs. Now, when you consider classic, I mean, guys back then, classic, didn't really have the biggest legs, but this is a different take, a different variation on what classic physique would have been like if it was in the modern era. So I do think you need a very substantial amount of leg development, which Wesley does have, but just not on the level of like an Urs or even a Terrence or even a Mike Summerfield, which is why he's on the outside of this last call out here. But overall, it was a very, very good prejudging, and it honestly, I think there's going to be some mix-ups. I think the top three is pretty solid between Chris, Urs, and also Ramon. But outside of that, I mean, we can have some shuffles. We can see Terrence in fifth. We can see Breon in fourth. We can see maybe Mike Summerfield slip in there to maybe edge out Terrence to Breon. We can see Michael the Bull and Wesley, them battling it out. Who's going to place above the other guy this time? There's some stories here, and it's very interesting, honestly. So we're going to keep on looking at it, guys. Let me know down below if you're watching the 2023 Miss Olympia and who you got winning the Classic Physique division. Thank you, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.